When we talk about BA or business analysis, the first thing that comes to mind is requirement. So what does requirement mean really? So requirements could actually mean different things, isn't it? So what do you think requirements really in that context? That's good. So requirements, some people say requirements as specifications, some people say requirements as something that must be achieved, a non-negotiable set of objectives, as you said rightly. Some of the people call requirements as things that must be validated and verified so that you can assess whether something is done right or wrong. So all
Yeah.
of these are basically the goals. Sometimes some people call it as, like, for example, the quality parameters could be requirements, non-functional requirements. Project, as well as, for example, it could be related to process. You're trying to improve something in a process, and
Yeah.
something about doing things, about the way of doing some work. So, for example, on the shop floor, if you want to improve the process of how the parts move from one part to another, from one department of one store to another store, one team
Mhm.
to another team. That's again a process. So requirements could be in a project, it could be for a process, it could be for a product, an application. If you're trying to develop a product, yeah, that's again, you need requirements, isn't it? So the features of the product would actually be, again, converted into requirements as to how you would like to develop the product, the benefits of that you want to convey or share across to the end users, the customers of the product, again, can be written in the form or molded in the form of requirements, right? So requirements come in different forms, different shapes, different sizes, different ways of how we look at things. So pretty much everything is a requirement in that sense, isn't it? So it's
Yeah.
basically about what you would. Yeah, go ahead.
No, no, no. I said yeah.
So requirement is basically that. From that angle, it's pretty fluid, isn't it? It's like very it's a subjective way of looking at things as to what is required to be done, what is needed to be done. So sometimes needs can be requirements, sometimes wishes, wants, wish list of things could be again requirements, isn't it? So for example,
Yeah.
some of the user bases, as I was telling you about the example of Sonos, or even Apple, or some of these big product companies, they invite people to actually the user base to talk about what they would like to see in the product next, right? So the
Yeah.
wish list of what they would like to do. I want Dolby to be supported in my Sonos play bar, for example, could be a wish list. And if more and more customers and users want that as a feature, then it gets upvoted, and obviously that would become more important, more urgent for the product owner, product manager of the play bar, Sonos play bar, to prioritize that in the immediate future
Mhm.
over something else. So they understand that from that point of view. Again, there the wish list or the wants of the users also becomes requirements in that sense. It's not just the needs potentially. So, and sometimes can you express requirements all the time? Can you actually easily say what you need or what you require from it? It's not always that you ask somebody what you need and what do you require. They'll say I require this. So as we discussed, so I think I keep giving the example of this patient and the doctor, right? So you have a problem, you've got temperature, and what do you need? You need the temperature to come down. That's the requirement of yours. That's the need, is to regulate, your body needs to regulate the temperature back to the normal or the accepted levels. That's the
Yeah.
requirement. So for that, you go to the doctor, and the doctor asks you what is the problem, right? And then you say this is the problem, but is this the problem? The problem, this is not the real problem. The doctor then asks a lot of questions, and then they come up with some ways. Okay, the reason why you've got temperature could be because of various things. It could be because of infection, it could be because of your exposure to some cold, it could be because of virus, or it could be a lot of things, right? So they try to understand the real problem. The perceived problem according to the patient is basically the temperature, but to be
Yeah.
honest, in reality, that is not the problem. That is a symptom of the problem. The root cause
Yeah.
for the problem, the real problem, is not that, right? So same way, we as BAs need to really try and understand the problems, the needs, opportunities, challenges, all of these. So sometimes we can't just ask the customers what they feel that they need, because what they think they need is not the real need. That's why they say that what you can't just go to people and ask what do you need, because they do not know that themselves,
Yeah.
sometimes, most often. So that's the reason why we require BAs. The reason why we need BAs is because we have the right techniques, we use the right tools and the right skill set to unearth and to elicit.
Yeah.
It's not gathering, to elicit the the explicit and the implicit requirements. Sometimes it's not always explicit, so the requirements are implicit. So we need to do those kind of different, we need to use different techniques, different approaches to come up with the real requirements. So again, just in that context, you've got, for example, Lego bricks. We all know we do Lego bricks and blocks. So right, so there are different individual blocks and pieces. You can actually try and put them in different ways. It's the same set of pieces, but the way you create, somebody might create a house, somebody might create a bridge, a person might create an aeroplane, you might create a robot. It doesn't matter what you're trying to do, but you all have these kind of different ways. But then depending on what we think, depending on our creativity and imagination, we create those different different structures out of the same building blocks. Essentially, that's what really we're trying to say. So you can create, without any plan, we can start something and then just end up with some rough haphazard way. Or you can try and have some kind of a plan, proper structure, give it some thought, perhaps even just draw a rough design and then start bringing those pieces into some kind of a shape and form, and that would actually give a perfect structure. So again, pretty much like that, you have an option where you can build without an approach, and the same thing, you can build something else with proper approach, with thinking, with planning, with preparation, with an idea as to how that would really end up, right? So there are two different ways of actually trying to use the Lego bricks just to that extent, and you can create this. In the same way, everything that we do in life pretty much is in the same structure. So you can either do some things out of out of just some okay, I'm just trying to do this, whims and fancies, you can do that. At the same time, you can do the same things with a bit of more application of thought, trying to understand the why you're doing something and what is the reason, what is the rationale for how it is, the outcomes, how they are coming up, and then you can structure your reactions, and then again your behaviors can be modified to get the desired outcomes. Again, related back to your own running, isn't it? So about 3 years ago, you would perhaps have started 2 years ago, and then imagine what you were doing the first day or the first few weeks of that kind of an approach, where you said, yeah, I want to run, just started running, and then you keep listening to people, do this, do that. And now after about a good 2 years, you know that you're actually trying to look at the controlling of the regulation of the heart rate as the key for your running. That is what you need to really focus on, not the, you're not looking at fitness, you're not looking at the strength of your calves. Yeah, those are all, those are all different approaches, right? But first, what you have found is what fits you. What is it that you really need to focus on in your running? And that's what has been the, so there is a lot of, now as you said, I mean, that's what I have heard about your passion, what you've been doing off late, focusing on this heart rate, trying to look up, creating videos and talking to people, explaining how you are structuring your own running into this, right? So there is a method to the madness now. There is a lot more thinking, there's a lot more practicality, pragmatic approach of running now compared with just running on day one when you started. So that pretty much is what we're looking at with the requirements as well. So it's the same thing as we were talking about. Requirements development also works on the same principle. If you've got an approach, if you've got something, a method to the madness, it would have a better way of actually trying to get the outcome that you planned for, that you wanted, that you desired. In the absence of that planning, what you will get is, obviously there's no communication of a clear vision. If there's no clear vision to the team, what would they just go like headless chickens everywhere, trying to do something and then getting something out of it, but there's no real satisfaction, there's no teamwork, there's no sense of achievement, there's no sense of satisfaction for the team as well as for the product. It doesn't come up in the shape that they want to, and it is just a very informal, very messy approach to things. And also, as we discussed, there is no commitment, there's no purpose, nobody knows what we're trying to do. It's all like pretty much like what we were doing initially with COVID, right? COVID-19, the first 6-7 months, nobody knew what was happening. Everybody thought, oh, it was a virus, so we'll do this. One person started, okay, we should have social distancing, okay, let's do that. And then somebody says, no, we should have a mask, okay, mask. The third person would say we should actually have this. So they were actually trying to just copy others, trying to see what works best. Nobody had an idea of what we were trying to do, what was the impact, how the virus would react. Nobody had a clue. And even now, I don't know if if we've got that any closer in terms of how the virus would react. What are the kind of things that would actually kind of affect or impact uh, the behavior of this virus on the surfaces, for example. We are just getting there. We're still in the initial stages. So I think that's the reason why we should actually have some kind of a plan, some kind of an understanding in terms of what we're doing, how we're going to achieve what we're doing, and then what is going to be the outcome. So how can we measure the outcome, and how we're going to measure the impact of what we're doing, how we're going to measure the efficacy of something that we're doing. So that's where the business analysis, planning, and monitoring, this particular knowledge area focuses on.
Yeah.
It talks about, so there are two things here. For example, if you have the strategy analysis, so different, again, this is basically the starting point for the whole set of activities that you're trying to start in your, so it's pretty much like how you decide for your running. So you decide that, okay, do you want to be a long distance runner? Do you want to actually build up that stamina? Do you want to, have first do the starting initial bit, get out of the couch and start running, to 5K, couch to 5K running, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
So this is what you still, just want to have some kind of base plan, and then slowly you try, and you don't have to stick to the plan, because obviously, as we discussed, planning is everything, plans are nothing. So plans keep changing, but what we still need to have is some kind of planning approach, a preparation, some kind of initial thing. And that's why this actually ignites pretty much everything else in the business analysis approach. So first thing is planning. From here, you've got the elicitation collaboration, which would again is connected to the strategy analysis, which then again is followed by the requirements analysis and design definition, and then followed by the requirements lifecycle management, which in turn is linked to the solution evaluation. So there is a little bit of linkages, interlinkages, and interrelationships between these, or amongst these 6 knowledge areas. So that's how BA actually gets to see. It's not like standalone, okay, first you do this, then you do this kind of a thing. But pretty much whatever we do, it's like we do a bit of each of these in our pieces of work, whatever we do. That's the whole approach, right? So this is how the whole set of framework of the 6 knowledge areas as defined, as envisaged by the BA BOK.